He bought Good Will Hunting, and we shot it in '97. And I did 5 movies in quick succession. He signed me up for a 3-picture deal, and I didn't work with him again after that. But I was there kind of at that was the height of his power. And what you knew back then was, I mean, you had to spend about 5 minutes with him to know that he was a bully, he was intimidating. That was his legend. That was his whole kind of MO. Like, you know, could you survive a meeting with Harvey? Could you stand up for yourself with Harvey? And the people who worked for him were like, you know, I'm coming here to make good movies. Miramax was the place, really the place that was making great stuff in the 90s. So when people say, like, everybody knew, like, yeah, I knew it was, you know, I mean, he was proud of that, you know what I mean? That's how he carried himself. And I knew he was a womanizer, you know, I wouldn't want to be married to the guy, but, like, I'm not, you know, it's not my business, really. But this level of criminal sexual predation is not something that I ever thought was going on. Absolutely not. I knew the story about Gwyneth from Ben because he was with her after Brad, and so I knew that story. But I was working with Gwyneth, with Harvey, you know, on Ripley.
Tom Ripley. Tom Ripley? We were at Princeton together.
I never talked to Gwyneth about it. Ben told me, but I knew that they had come to whatever agreement or understanding that they had come to. She had handled it, and she was, you know, the first lady of Miramax, and he treated her incredibly respectfully, always.
Harvey would talk to me about women that he'd had affairs with. I didn't necessarily believe them, quite honestly, because to believe them would be to believe kind of the worst of some actresses who were friends of mine. And I didn't really think that they were going to have affairs with Harvey, quite honestly, and clearly they didn't. But the idea that this predator, this assaulter, was out there silencing women like that, it's beyond infuriating. And the fact that the story is coming out now, and the more it comes out, I want to know all of it.
Quentin Tarantino, another big director, obviously has come forward and said, we've heard these things, we've never seen it. So there's nothing that you've heard it, like you said, you never saw anything that...
He didn't do it out in the open. If there was ever an event or something that I was at in public with Harvey, and he was doing this kind of thing, and I missed it, and there's some woman who was somehow assaulted, and you know, it was at the Golden Globes or something like that, and I somehow missed it, then I'm sorry.
How do we change?
There has to be a comeuppance for all of this, all of the people who are part of that chain. And then we have to make it safe for people to feel that they can talk about this. And in doing that, I think that'll scare away that kind of behavior. But more than anything, you're going to have a warning shot over the bow of anyone who would act like that you will be outed and you'll be out of the business, and more than that, you might be prosecuted. I talked with my wife about this, and she said, you know, she could find, you know, in her line of work, which is human rights law, you know, there have been plenty of instances where some guy has tried, you know, to make their move. Some guy in power has tried to make their move. Many, if not most women, have at some point in their life faced this kind of behavior. I think that's a little bit of a surprise to some of us, that it's this big, that it's this prevalent. And maybe that's something else that's good that comes out of this, is that we're going to have these discussions, we're going to have this conversation, and again, we're going to make it harder for it to happen.